Good evening, folks. Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It's time for live full-time reaction to Celtic 2, Ross County 0 at home in the Scottish Premiership. I'm joined tonight by Chris and Kenny to go through the game. This is a live format. You can ask your questions as ever in the live chat box below. Chris, we'll start with you tonight, mate. A win and a clean sheet. I think it was a little bit flat at times. We did create a lot more chances tonight, though. So, what do you make of it overall?
I think it was. I'm not going to say it was a magnificent performance, but I thought it was a very professional performance. I think we were looking for some energy and not to just drop points coming off of what was a historic weekend. And you could see a couple of the players were pretty leggy. But because many of them played 120 minutes on the weekend. But right from the get-go, I thought we were really aggressive, which was nice to see. That formation and that particular lineup offered us a lot of width for whatever reason, which we've been crying out for. I thought we got in behind them quite a few times, and probably barring a few saves and maybe a couple of players being a bit more proficient in front of the net, it could easily have been 4 or 5-0, and that scoreline would not have flattered County. They came to literally avoid being battered before their weekend game against St Mirren. You could see that. They just didn't want to take a thrashing, and they sat with a bank of 6 and 3 for really the whole game. So I thought it was much better. I think the positives to take are, Frimpong had probably one of his best games of the year. Turnbull again on the score sheet, another great performance from him. And we did not concede any goals, and we didn't actually look like we were going to concede any goals. So definitely some positive signs, and that's 4 positive results on the spin.
Kenny, we've seen 4 changes to the team tonight. We went with a 4-4-2 diamond. What did you make of that setup tonight?
I was excited when I saw it. So, although we've won the cup at the weekend, let's not kid ourselves on. It was a catastrophic performance for most of it. We were all over the place. So the fact that we've now arrived at our 4th good result in a row, or we're coming into a game after 3 good results, it doesn't mean that we've found a formation and a system that we're comfortable and happy in. Nowhere near it. So we're still experimenting, as dangerous as that is and as uncomfortable as that is. So why not go with what he went with tonight? I was surprised by it, based on what you read in social media. I think most people were. But this time last season, we were sort of forced into a system of playing Eddie and Griffiths up front. And you know what? That's what won us the league. We weren't as far as, in part, what won us the league, because they just went on and they destroyed people over the course of about 12 games, and we won the vast majority of them. They scored a lot of goals, and it gave us a real lease of life. So why not try it? Griffiths has looked so sharp when he's come on. His goal rate I don't know what his goals per minute is. It must be massive, because he's barely played and he seems to score every time he's on the park. And it gives Eddie that freedom just to wander and drift and use all the skills that he's got, that he's been snuffed out this season because he's been stuck in the D with 5 men round him and nobody to offer support to him. So I was pleased with all of that. And it was good to see Sorrow. I liked Sorrow in there again. That was a pretty... Okay, you could say it's a pretty easy out for him, but he plays with discipline, he plays with an identity, he plays with a brain, he plays the ball forward quickly. All of these simple things that Scott Brown's not been doing for us, unfortunately, all season. Scott Brown seems to be ragged and have lost his focus. Sorrow gives you all of that, and it just gives you that base for your creative players to play from. So I was pleased with the aggressive change that he made to the front line. I think it's the right thing to do, and we need to be mindful that, we're going to Ibrox in a couple of weeks' time. Does that leave you a bit more exposed at the back? Maybe, but no matter what we've put at the back, we've been exposed. So it's not like we've got something else that we know is going to work that we can default to. So I think it's a pretty sensible move.
Yeah. Chris, I think the first goal tonight is a perfect example of how effective it is when someone gets to the byline. Someone like Frimpong, who I think this season he's come inside so often. But we've heard a few people say it recently that he's coming inside far too often. He does brilliantly he skins, Reid at left back for Ross County, absolutely skins him, gets to the byline and lifts his head up and picks out Turnbull. But what a difference. We've not got into those areas at the near the byline often enough recently.
No, it's still lacking. I'm not saying it was perfect. Somebody's saying in the comments they don't agree that we had any width. I'm not saying it was perfect, far from it, but I do think it was better. And I still think there is definitely further room for improvement. But that is what we've been crying out from Frimpong. He's got skill. He's got speed. We all know he needs to defend better. So if Lennon is going to play a combination of 4-4-2, 4-3-3, or 4-2-3-1, whatever, you're going to need him to defend really well if he's going to play in that position. But we all know he can be a man. The thing we've been crying out for is a better final ball. And, that I know is an isolated incident, but it got us into the game, right? It allowed us to put a foothold in the game. It was at a good time into the first half. How many times this year, and I believe Kenny's mentioned it before, have we gone an entire 45 minutes where we don't score, then we come out into the second half, we start getting nervous, and we concede a sloppy goal. The St. Johnstone game would be a perfect example of that a couple of weeks ago. And then you're chasing. And then when you chase, you leave yourself open to either conceding another or not finding a way to win a game. So from that perspective, the timing was good. And I was happy to see how many players we also had in the box looking for that ball to be cut back to them. And Turnbull just got himself in the perfect spot. And, that's an easy finish for 1-0.
Kenny, Griffiths started tonight up alongside Edouard, which I think a lot of people have been crying out for. A question in for Khalifa asking, who do you think's the best duo up top? What do you think of how it went tonight with Griffiths? I know he had some chances, could have had a hat-trick actually tonight. I think that's why when he scored his goal, he wasn't best pleased because he just missed a sitter about 30 seconds beforehand. But do you think that is the partnership? Obviously, we know for last season, as you mentioned already, they were brilliant together. Do you think tonight, though, we got any signs of Griffiths bringing the best out in Edouard?
Tentative signs, I think, towards the end, because Edouard was coming deeper than he has been, and he was playing with a bit more energy and a bit more freedom than we've seen him, and he probably feels he can because he's not that, he's got Griffiths ahead of him, so he can drop into those positions. I think they are. It takes time to bed in relationships between strikers. To bed in a relationship, using Klimala and Eddie, and we've tried it and little things like that, and nothing's worked. We're at a point in the season now where we need to go with something that isn't going to take 2 months to bed in, because we don't have that time. Let's face it, we're in a last chance saloon, another draw, and we can call it good night. So we need to hit the ground running, and those two know each other. I think they didn't look, let's be honest, they were hardly absolutely flying in the first half. Griffiths was very quiet, Eddie was coming deep, getting a bit frustrated. But in the second half, they were linking up a bit, and Griffiths was playing on the shoulder and he's getting in behind. It's been so rare that our number 9 has got in behind this season. You could almost count it in one hand. So it was a fresh, okay, he missed both those chances, but it was nice to see him just have 2 clear-cut chances from open play and as a striker, because Edouard's barely had any. So, and then his header's class. He's such a small striker, but his whole career he's been able to use his neck muscles to deliver that type of finish, and he gets on the score sheet. So, it'll take a bit more time for them to bed in, but I'm confident they will because of their history. And overall, pleased for Griffiths tonight. It was another good shift.
Yeah, he's always likely to get at least one league, Griffiths, and I'm wondering if Neil Lennon is going to stick with that to go to Hamilton on Boxing Day. Chris, one of the other changes we've seen tonight was Greg Taylor go out and Laxalt come back in. I said it before the game about Laxalt. I think he's a bit cavalier at times, and I don't know if, obviously when it works, he done it a couple of times tonight where he rushes over and tries to nick the ball before the winger dives, if you like, and when it comes off, it looks brilliant because it's proactive and it looks aggressive. But when it doesn't come off, it looks a bit silly. And I thought tonight he's just charging around, and the thing that I'm kind of surprised by is the lack of quality in the final third that we've seen from him so far, particularly in crossing positions.
Yeah, I think when we first saw him come into the team, we were all really impressed and really excited. But you can see there's still a level of maturity that he needs to get to in his game. Decision making, I think, would be the way to sum up exactly what you're saying, right? Is when to go to ground and when to just stay on your feet, right? When you play in that left, back position, you want to always. The rule is try to show your man outside. I'm confident Laxalt's not going to get beat for pace because he's very, very quick. So really, just play the man. I mean, obviously, if it's a last-ditch scenario, I'm all for him going to ground in those situations, Paul. But yeah, he could definitely work on his decision-making, and his final ball does still need some work as well. I just think, though, Paul, he offers more. And I'm not going to say Greg Taylor's a terrible footballer because that would be really unfair. He's a professional, so clearly he knows how to play. But I just think Laxalt does offer us more in that position than Taylor does in terms of his energy to get up and down the park. And if he could work on kind of his final distribution, he could be a really fantastic player for us, in the 5-6 months left that we still have him.
Kenny, how would you stand on the left backs?
It's a really tough one because Laxalt looks dynamic. He's got much more athleticism. But at the end of the day, we've shipped a heck of a lot of goals with him in the side, and I think the reason being is for what you've pointed out there, Paul. He is a bit cavalier in terms of holding his shape. Now that's kind of palatable if he's whipping in good balls that are resulting in goals. He's not really doing that either. So for all his dynamism, he's not offering that much going forward or defensively. So I think on balance, I'd probably lean with Taylor, albeit I think Taylor's got a cap to his contribution. I mean, we've saw it so many times. When he goes forward, it just hits a point where it's rare that he has a really sort of effective game in an offensive sense, albeit he does give you the defensive side. So I think I'd probably be going with Taylor, but I don't think we've necessarily solved that long-running problem.
Mm-hmm. Chris, who else impressed you tonight? Kenny did mention earlier Sorrow, who I think he impressed me as well. I thought he was one of the better performers tonight. Always looking to play forward, which is so important for the player in that position. There's so many times, particularly in the second half, where he played precise, accurate forward passes through the middle of the pitch, which I don't think we see. Again, we don't see often enough at times.
Yeah, he really impresses me. We've definitely found a player in Sorrow, no doubt about it. He's got a great engine. He's got a real knack for just winning those 50-50 balls, which if you're playing in that deep midfield holding role, or if you're trying to protect the back line, that's really what you want in that type of player. But to your point, as soon as he picks up the ball, he is always looking to make a forward penetrating pass. And that's what I really like about him. I mean, I know we mentioned the first goal earlier, but that was something I was pleased to see out of McGregor tonight. I thought he had a very steady game. Like that ball that McGregor plays into the channel is absolutely superb. And that's where you're picking up the pace in the final third there. You're getting the defense on their heels. So I was pleased with his performance tonight. And I don't know if anyone else is going to agree with me, but I really liked Edouard's game tonight. He looked much more dangerous. He had a couple of brilliant chances where on another day, I think he scores. To Kenny's point, we're starting to see some of that connection that we saw in the last 12 games of last season where we were just like unplayable and unbeatable. And that combination was Griffiths and Edouard. So we're starting to see a little bit of that. I just liked his all-around game tonight. He was aggressive. He had a couple of great shots from outside the box. He's starting to look a little more like himself. Close control was good, holding off the man. And to Kenny's point, we haven't seen enough of that this year where the 9 or the 10 are getting in behind and actually causing the defense some problems and actually making the goalies make a save or having some dangerous shots. So I thought Eddie had a good game tonight. And I want to just give Lennon a shout out. We've all been hard on him, and rightfully so, but he picked the right team tonight. I do like the formation. I do agree with Kenny, though. It's dangerous that we're still trying to figure out what our best combination is. But he also let Griffiths play for 80 minutes, and he really needs the minutes under his belt if we're going to go the next 2 games, try and win those, and then go and play against Rangers on the second. And we all know we need to win that game. But obviously, to avoid defeat, I think would still be important because there's a long way to go.
It's interesting. You've both talked about players getting in behind defences tonight. Kenny, I thought we did create a lot more chances tonight, but just again the decision making, and maybe this is because we know the team's not in top gear at the minute, but the decision making at times when we were coming into the final third and it looked like we were going to create a chance, or even the chances that did arise, I just thought the decision making maybe wasn't what it could have been.
Yeah, I mean, they had some pretty good last-ditch stuff, Ross County, to be fair. I mean, it was pretty heroic the way they were throwing their bodies in the line. Yeah, and you're not always going to score a barrel load. I mean, Frimpong, what was nice about Frimpong is his biggest failure by a mile is, well, his defending's a bit weak, but when he gets offensively, he can get by his man without thought, but his final ball is often ineffective, and it's because he rushes it and he doesn't look up. You could see he paused when he got to the byline. and he looked up and he saw Turnbull, and that was a deliberate pick out, and somebody of Turnbull's quality is always going to score. If Frimpong can start using that in the final third, he's going to be a significantly more effective player than what he is at the moment. The rest of the side in the second half, it was good to see us getting in behind a bit, because because we had Christie and Turnbull, and with their skill and ability, and they had some support in the wide areas, we could play balls in behind them when we were getting to the byline. But I agree with you, yeah, we were probably trying to sort of overplay. Things just weren't falling. Combination of that and the defending, it got a bit scrappy at times in front of goal. But just overall pleased with a professional win.
Yeah, it's definitely an improvement, and probably one of our better performances in recent months. Chris, you mentioned the derby that's on the horizon. I think a lot of the time, certainly for me, I'm looking to see a performance where I can look at the Celtic team and go, do you know what? That is the kind of performances, and that's the kind of forum that I can believe that we're going to claw this back. And I believe that kind of performance, if we go to Ibrox and play like that, we can definitely get a victory. So maybe that's where my trepidation about tonight comes from. I'm not being negative. I know it was a good win. We got a clean sheet, which has been hard to come by recently. And on another night, we could have had more goals. But there's just a feeling. I've just got a feeling that's not the sort of intensity and the level that we need to be at if we're going to have any chance to claw this back and make a go at it.
Look, I'm not going to disagree with you, Paul. If we played like that against Rangers on January 2nd, we wouldn't win the game, right? I'm not going to disagree with you. We have not hit the form that we had last year, especially in that run after the Christmas break, right? We lost to Rangers, and then we went to Dubai. We came back, and then we were like a different team. It was unbelievable. No, we haven't hit that level of consistency and performance. I do think it is within us to find it, but we're running out of time, right? We've got a game against Hamilton away, then we've got Dundee United at home, and then a game against Rangers. So it's not a lot of time to decide what your best 11 is and your best formation if you don't already know it. So that is something that Lennon is going to have to think very hard about between now and that game. I mean, I think it's the game. It's always the most important game, right? But in the context of where we are in the season, we're 16 points behind. Yes, we've got 3 games in hand. But like Kenny says, if we drop points in the games prior or points in that game, it's over. Because whether we accept it or not, Rangers have found a level of performance and consistency, right? That's just a fact. Now, there's a long way to go. Yes, they've never been in this position before, so I'm interested to see if they can actually keep up that level of performance, and can they not crumble under the pressure? Because we've been able to do it as a front runner in the past. I'll be interested to see what happens, but we shouldn't have to depend on what they do. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in this position because we've had way too many draws this season, especially at home. We've dropped far too many points. So it'll be interesting to see the next couple of games and then that game on January 2nd. But I agree with you. I don't have any level of confidence, but I just am really pleased that we didn't ship any goals tonight. And I think there wasn't the same energy, because coming off a game like that, I mean, that was an unbelievable game on the weekend, both in terms of what we had to put out to win the game, the psychological stuff that we overcame within the game. So I think it's actually good that we won tonight, and we had, to Kenny's point, and I mentioned it earlier, a professional performance.
Yeah, and you're right to point out the cup final, because it was draining. It was physically and emotionally draining. Emotionally draining for us, never mind the players. So I think definitely there is maybe a hangover, if you like, from Sunday, Kenny. And we may well be getting back there. We may well be. It's, as I said a few weeks ago against Kilmarnock, baby steps, if you like. We're putting wins together, and that is what we have to do. And maybe with wins, the momentum will come, and then we will gradually end up in a place where we do click back into gear. Would you make of where we're at over that game in the horizon, Kenny?
I mean, I agree with everything you both said. It's hard to, look, after the damage that's been done and how down we've been all season, to say, well, we've just beat Ross County 2-0, so we're going to go gung ho at Ibrox and win comfortably. You can't think like that. How would we get that sort of level of confidence? Maybe if we went and put 5 or 6 past Hamilton, that would start to build belief. But you know what? I don't think they deserve as much respect. I don't think we should go in and show them that much respect. I mean, St Mirren didn't, right? Man for man, I still believe on paper we're as good a team. It's not like we've got vastly inferior players. And you know what? Often these games against the Glasgow Derby games, they don't always go to form. They kind of have done during Celtic's dominant period, but back in the 90s, Celtic were written off all over the place in these games. Quite often they would put in a shift and get something that you wouldn't expect. So I don't feel too down about being an underdog for the first time in about 10 years getting into a Glasgow Derby, because I think that might, that can galvanise people. And I think they've not faced a combative Sorrow before. They've not faced the intelligence of Turnbull before. They've not really had this season to face an Eddie who's up for it. Eddie is now up for it. All these things are going in my favour. I'd be a bit concerned about Hazard and goal and the strength of what he did in the 120 minutes in that pressure cooker game at the weekend. That worries me, because if they've got a strength that's balls in for the wide area that are swung in with pace, and he was all over the place, that worries me, because unless we sign Fraser Foster and play him the following day, which seems a bit fanciful, we're going to have that as a risk. So a bit nervous defensively, but let's not show them too much respect. It's within our capability.
I just want to add to that, Paul, if I may, real quick. One thing I really want to see Lennon do in this game is match Gerrard tactically. If Gerrard goes with his usual 4-3-3, that's essentially the system that we need to try and do to combat. If it means we give up a little bit offensively in terms of our ability to maybe cut them open, but don't be naive and think you can go with the same thing that you've done before, because in 3 of the last Old Firm games, or I get slaughtered for saying Old Firm games, the last 3 Rangers games, they have completely outplayed us with their system. So he needs to be bold and be aggressive. And I agree, don't show them any respect, because they haven't won anything to deserve any respect. Their play has earned them plenty of respect in the media, and then there's talk of being invincible, and then they got beat by St Mirren. So they are beatable. That's a fact. And what would really be interesting is if Lennon gets his team selection right and his tactics and the players show up. I agree. We are absolutely more than a match for them talent-wise, but you have to put it all together in 90 minutes. And that's really the obstacle that we have to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other factor, Kenny mentioned it, form in these games, sometimes it goes out the window. You can't rely on form to dictate how a derby game is going to unfold. And
Clint Hill put the stoppers on our Invincibles one day at Parkhead, right? So you only need to look to that pathetic incident to figure out that, let's not be scared.
Yeah, absolutely. They're definitely beatable. And I think the big thing for us is we just have to go there with a tactical setup that can deal with them, and then we know we've got the quality to beat them. Final one on tonight. Who was your man of the match? I think Turnbull got the sponsors. Kenny?
It's hard. There's no real flair performance. I would go Sorrow just because of his discipline and the speed of his forward passes and the fact that it gives us a lovely shape to play from. I don't think, and those guys are hard to find. They're not easy to find. It looks simple, but it's not. It's not. He's got a good natural brain, and he's older. He's older than his years, so he's a really good find. I would give him the nod.
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, I definitely give it to Sorrow, and I thought Frimpong had a really good game. But yeah, Sorrow is fantastic. And talking to tacticals and lineup decisions, is Lennon going to go back to Brown if he's healthy over Sorrow? That is, I know what I want. I know what I want as a Celtic fan, but I might not get my Christmas wish.
We'll save that for another day. I'm going to go Sorrow as well. That's a clean sweep for him. Like the video, comment your own thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you shortly for Twitter reaction.